Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're unpacking a blueprint for business in one of the fastest growing and, let's be honest, most complex regions on the planet,
Yeah,
the Middle East and North Africa, or MENA.
that's right.
We're getting into a really crucial source, the Franchise Arabia Playbook by the franchising expert OMAR ALHAZA'A. And it basically charts a course for scaling in the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC.
And this is such an essential deep dive for anyone watching global business right now. I mean, franchising in MENA is absolutely booming. You've got Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Qatar. They're all economic powerhouses.
But there's a catch.
There's a huge catch. The core premise the book lays out right from page 1 is this: the classic Western model of scaling, the one that's all about speed, velocity, immediate ROI. It just doesn't work there.
That is the key challenge. We see so many Western brands try to just, copy paste their entire system, and they hit this massive cultural wall.
They really do. The playbook argues that, yeah, franchising gives you a structure for expansion, but to actually succeed in the GCC, you need something different.
Something more.
Exactly. You need patience, strategic patience, deep cultural intelligence, and it all comes down to trust. So our mission today is really to pull that blueprint apart, to look at the tactics, the financial realities, and the cultural fit you need to scale well thoughtfully.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where do we even begin?
We have to start with the mindset. I mean, that foundational mindset shift, because it honestly dictates everything else that follows.
Okay.
The author is unequivocal. He says in MENA, a deal isn't closed in the boardroom. It's built over coffee, over conversation, over countless small gestures of trust.
So all the things that a Western exec might see as just small talk.
Precisely. That's not small talk, that's the work. Your knowledge, your great product, your perfect contract, that's all secondary to the credibility you build in the relationship.
Which immediately changes the timeline, right?
Yeah.
You can't just fly in, sign a deal, and fly out.
No way. If you're an unknown brand, you have to adopt this mantra. Awareness first, sales second. The source is so clear on this. You have to build visibility, engagement, and credibility. Those are non-negotiable steps before you can even think about revenue.
You're building a reputation, not just opening a store.
Exactly. And that work requires you to accept that MENA is not one single market. It's not a monolith.
Right.
Applying a blanket GCC strategy is a guaranteed way to fail. The book warns, very explicitly, Dubai is not Riyadh, Cairo is not Beirut. You have to tailor your approach for each city.
Okay, so let's break that down. Let's talk about the specific market. Saudi Arabia, what's the play there?
Scale. Pure and simple. Saudi Arabia offers just immense scale. You have a huge population, rising disposable income, and a really strong demand for international brands, especially Western concepts.
So the volume play.
It's a massive volume play. If you get the cultural fit right, the rewards can be huge.
Okay, so how does that contrast with, say, the UAE?
The UAE, and especially Dubai, is, well, it's smaller, but it's hyper-competitive and incredibly important strategically. It's the global brand showcase.
The flagship location.
It's the flagship location. It's where you prove you can execute at an international level. Success in Dubai gives you credibility across the entire region. It's less about volume and more about just flawless execution and visibility.
And then you have the premium markets, Kuwait and Qatar.
Right. These are very selective, very high-spending markets. The consumers are discerning. Execution has to be absolutely perfect, but the margins can be really strong.
But the stakes are higher.
The stakes are so much higher. Getting it wrong in Doha or Kuwait City can be devastating for your regional reputation. So understanding these differences, that dictates your whole strategy.
Okay, so that knowledge of the market leads us right into the mechanics of it all. Choosing the right franchise model. You've got your standard options, single unit, multi-unit, master franchises. How do you pick the right one for this dynamic?
Well, the models that really dominate growth over there are multi-unit and master franchises. And that's because they combine scalability with that essential local insight we've been talking about.
So what's the difference really between those two?
A multi-unit deal gives a franchise rights to open, say, 5 or 10 units in a pretty defined area. But a master franchise, that's a whole other level. The franchise basically becomes the brand for an entire country. They handle sub-franchising, supply chain, everything.
And that's where the risk comes in, right?
Yeah.
Giving away that much control too soon.
Precisely. The single most critical piece of advice from the playbook for any brand that isn't a global household name is to start small. Start with a single unit pilot.
A pilot program.
Yes. Use it to test the concept, get real data on your costs, on menu changes, on your operations, and do all that before you grant away massive territory rights.
But that must slow things down. I mean, what if you have investors with deep pockets who are ready to sign a master agreement tomorrow? Isn't there pressure to just go, go, go?
There's immense pressure, and that pressure leads to one of the biggest mistakes the author warns about. Granting master rights to a wealthy investor who has capital but zero operational DNA.
They can write the check, but they can't run the store.
Exactly. They think they can just hire the talent later, but without a deep, passionate understanding of the brand systems, it almost always ends in a tarnished brand, toxic relationships, and a huge mess. The directive is so clear. Scale smart, not fast.
Which brings us to territory planning. The source calls this a blend of science and insight. The science part is what you'd expect, I guess. Demographics, competitor analysis.
Right, all the data mapping. But the insight, the local insight, is the tiebreaker. You need boots on the ground to see traffic patterns, sure. But the most important insight is understanding the psychology, the culture of a specific micro-location.
And the playbook has that perfect story about the Riyadh fitness franchise.
Oh, it's a brilliant example. So the data, the science, it identified this perfect location. High income, young professionals, great visibility. It looked like a guaranteed home run.
But the local insight said no.
The local insight screamed no. The location, it turned out, was situated right between two historically significant mosques in a very conservative part of the city.
Wow.
Yeah. Trying to launch a mixed-gender, high-energy gym concept there would have been culturally deaf. It would have failed, probably with a lot of negative press.
So what did they do?
They moved it, just 2 kilometers away, to a more progressive commercial district. That tiny, culturally intelligent decision saved the entire brand's reputation in the Saudi market.
It's such a powerful reminder that territory isn't just geography. It's, like the book says, psychology, culture, and timing.
Yes, and that brings us back to culture as the foundation for everything. Patience is a strategic asset. Meetings might start late. They'll go on over multiple coffees, and the conversation will be about values and vision long before you even get to the contract terms.
And we see this play out in the author's own story from Kuwait. He flew in with contracts ready to close a big deal.
And he failed. Completely. He pushed the business agenda way too hard, way too fast. He hadn't built the connection. It wasn't until he went back months later, intentionally left the contracts at the hotel, and just focused on conversation, on the human partnership, that the deal just sort of closed itself.
And that deal was huge.
It generated over $1.8 million in franchise fees. The lesson is so profound. Relationships, close deals, contracts, just document them.
And that cultural intelligence has to extend to the customer, too. What are the non-negotiables there?
Menu adjustments are key. Halal certification has to be rigorous and proudly displayed.
Right.
And you have to align promotions with local events, Ramadan, Eid, National Day. Ignoring that stuff doesn't just mean you're ignoring the customer, it signals you haven't bothered to learn the market.
So all this cultural work has to flow into the financial models. The clear revenue streams are the same, fees, royalties, but the assumptions have to change.
Absolutely. This is where so many Western models sink. The key tip is to model your numbers with regional cost realities, not Western assumptions. The biggest deviations are almost always labor costs and the supply chain.
How so?
Brands just grossly underestimate the cost of visa sponsorships, mandatory local benefits, and building out a specialized halal supply chain, not to mention import duties. All of that can inflate your cost of goods sold way beyond what a North American model would predict.
So if the margins are off from day one, you're already in trouble.
You're already sinking.
Okay, so let's say you get the culture right, the financials are realistic. Now you have to execute. Talk about operational discipline.
This is where the rubber meets the road. Strong systems, SOPs, training, quality control, they protect your consistency. And consistency is everything. The book shares a pretty sobering truth. Most franchise failures aren't because of a bad product. It's because the operational systems break down.
And you can't just walk in and expect to be number one, especially with the local champions.
You cannot outmuscle them. You think of a brand like Al-Baik in Saudi Arabia or Zaatar Wzite. These guys have decades of intense customer loyalty. Trying to compete with them head-to-head is just, it's corporate folly.
So what's the strategy?
It's differentiation. You have to find an underserved niche, a gap in the market, whether it's a type of cuisine or a level of service, and you obsess over executing that perfectly.
The case studies in the book really nail this point. Let's start with the success. Papa John's Pizza.
Papa John's is a great example. They paired their global operational strength with disciplined local execution. They found experienced regional partners, people with that operational DNA. They adapted the menu, guaranteed halal, and kept standards high. It was that perfect blend of system and sensitivity.
And the counterexample, Taco Bell.
Taco Bell, huge global brand recognition, but they really struggled. The book points to weak menu localization, the flavors weren't quite right for the local palate, and a real lack of cultural alignment in their marketing. It was a one-size-fits-all rollout.
So awareness gets you in the door, but adaptation keeps you there.
That's the brutal lesson. Awareness without adaptation is just a recipe for expensive failure.
Okay, so let's put it all together. The playbook synthesizes this into 5 franchise killers. These are the predictable, preventable mistakes.
Exactly.
Okay, killer number 1, granting franchise rights too early.
That's the operational DNA problem. You pick a partner with money but no experience, and you hand over the keys to your brand before they've proven they can run it.
Killer number 2, underestimating the cost of localization.
That's the financial mistake. Using Western P&L assumptions for things like labor and supply chain, which means your unit economics are fundamentally flawed from the start.
Killer number 3, no real training infrastructure.
This is a huge one. No certified regional trainers, no local language manuals. If your training is weak, consistency just evaporates across your stores.
Killer number 4, choosing locations based on rent, not strategy.
That's the Riyadh gym mistake all over again. You pick a spot because it's cheap, not because it's right, and you ignore the cultural psychology of the neighborhood.
And last one, killer number 5, ignoring franchise profitability.
Yeah. If you, the franchisor, only focus on your own revenue, your fees, your royalties, and you don't make sure the local franchisee is actually making money, the whole system collapses. A struggling franchise cuts corners, and that destroys the brand for everyone.
It's interesting because all these killers look like shortcuts. They look like efficiency or saving money in the short term.
But they slowly destroy the trust and profitability you need to survive long term. The brands that last are the ones that are disciplined.
So to wrap this up, what this deep dive has really shown is that success in MENA is all about making these incredibly deliberate choices. It's a merger of strategy, systems, and a real genuine respect for the markets you're entering.
It's about combining strong systems with strong relationships. You can't have one without the other.
And that respect ultimately is what builds longevity. The source's final message really hits that home, that in the GCC, reputation outlives any single deal. Longevity is so much more important than a flashy launch.
The market rewards those who build thoughtfully and scale deliberately.
The author leaves us with a really provocative thought. He suggests that the first deal is credibility, the first million is timing. So, if success is truly earned through that slow process of patience and respect, what single deliberate choice, maybe a deep market review, a conversation with a local partner, or just an invitation for a coffee, what choice will you make today to start playing the long game?